There's something most people overlook in this fast-paced world, something that doesn't show up on highlight reels. You won't see it trending, it doesn't shout for attention, and it won't give you instant gratification. It's not loud, it's not flashy, and yet it's one of the most powerful forces you'll ever encounter. It's patience and silence, two forces the world doesn't often celebrate, but they have the power to change everything. Think back to a time when you were rushing for something, an opportunity, a result, a response, and the more you rushed, the more it slipped away. The more noise you made, the less people listened. The more you pushed, the more resistance you felt. Now think of a moment when you waited, not idly, not with frustration, but with quiet resolve, a moment when you knew it wasn't time yet, when the seed had been planted, but the roots were still forming beneath the surface. You couldn't see it, no one could, but something was happening. That's patience, that's silence. You see, some of the most profound transformations in life happen in silence. A caterpillar becomes a butterfly inside a dark cocoon, completely still. A pearl forms in the quiet depths of the ocean, layer by layer. A baby grows in the womb, unseen, unheard for months. Trees don't shout when they grow. They just stretch toward the sky, inch by inch, rooted deeper in the earth each day. We live in a world that's addicted to speed and volume. We want fast results, loud applause, and immediate validation. But real power, real growth, doesn't move at the speed of noise. It moves at the speed of trust, of time, of intention. Patience isn't passive. It's not about waiting around for life to hand you something. It's about preparing. It's about building quietly behind the scenes, even when the stage lights are off and no one's watching. Patience is discipline. It's knowing the value of delayed gratification and the long game. And silence. Silence is presence. It's clarity. It's not about absence of sound, it's about the presence of understanding. Silence allows you to hear what others are too busy to notice. Your intuition, your instincts, your deeper truths. The greatest leaders don't speak the most. They listen the best. The strongest minds aren't the ones who argue the loudest. They're the ones who pause before they speak. Because silence isn't weakness, it's control. It's the ability to respond instead of react. Let me tell you a story. There was a young man eager to make his mark in the world. He had ambition, vision, drive, but no patience. He chased every opportunity, knocked on every door, demanded to be seen. He made noise, lots of it, and people noticed, but not in the way he hoped. They saw his desperation. They felt his energy pulling, not offering. And slowly doors began to close. One day an older mentor pulled him aside. "You're playing the short game," the mentor said. "You're so focused on making noise that you're not building substance. Be silent long enough to hear what really matters. Be patient long enough to become what you're chasing." The young man didn't understand it then. But life has a way of teaching lessons when we least expect it. Through failure, through heartbreak, through waiting, and slowly he began to shift. He stopped chasing. He started building. He spoke less. He listened more. He learned to sit with silence, to trust the process, to master the craft behind the curtain before stepping into the spotlight. Years later, he walked into the room again, this time not demanding anything, just offering value, and without forcing, the doors opened. That's the power of patience. That's the strength of silence. You don't always need to be seen to be growing. In fact, some of your most powerful growth will happen in isolation. While others are performing, you're preparing. While others are rushing, you're refining. And when the time comes, you'll arrive, not desperate, but ready. There's a quiet kind of confidence that comes from patience. A calm assurance that you're doing the work, even if no one notices. That you're becoming someone of depth, of substance, of integrity. We admire people who seem unshakable, who speak calmly in chaos, who don't overreact, don't overshare, don't over-explain. But what we're really admiring is their relationship with silence, their mastery of it. It takes strength to hold your tongue when provoked, to choose stillness over impulse, to pause instead of pounce. But those choices are what build your power, because silence isn't empty. It's full of answers. It's where your best ideas are born. It's where your wounds begin to heal. It's where you learn the difference between noise and signal. Look at nature. The tides don't crash all day. They rise and fall in rhythm. The sun doesn't scream when it sets. It simply disappears in dignity, knowing it will rise again. The most powerful forces are never in a hurry. They don't need to be. Neither do you. Patience teaches you to respect the process, to honor the time things need to evolve naturally. It teaches you that you don't need to force connections, force progress, or force understanding. You simply need to be consistent, grounded, open. The truth is, everything meaningful in life takes time. Trust, love, mastery, healing, none of it happens overnight, and none of it announces itself loudly. It builds in the background, moment by moment, decision by decision. But when you learn to sit in that silence, when you learn to wait with purpose, everything changes. You begin to realize that your worth isn't measured by how much attention you get, but by how much alignment you live in. You stop chasing moments and start creating meaning. You stop proving and start becoming. In silence, you reconnect with who you really are. You hear the quiet voice that says, "You're enough. You're on the right path. Keep going." And in patience, you find peace. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer desperate for the outcome. You trust that what's meant for you will arrive, not through force, but through preparation. Imagine this, a seed buried deep in the earth. It doesn't complain about the darkness. It doesn't rush the rain. It simply trusts that if it stays rooted, if it absorbs what's given, and if it keeps reaching upward, one day it will break through. That's not weakness, that's faith, that's power. We all want to be seen, we all want to matter, but sometimes the best thing you can do is step back, not to quit, but to realign, to ask, am I growing roots or just branches? Because when you grow roots, deep, quiet, patient roots, your growth becomes unstoppable. Storms won't shake you, criticism won't break you, delays won't discourage you, because you know who you are and you know what you're building. Let the world rush, let it make noise. You don't need to compete with chaos. You just need to stay grounded in your purpose. Keep showing up, keep listening, keep building silently and steadily. Eventually, the results will speak louder than you ever could. And here's the beautiful irony. Those who embrace patience and silence often become the most influential voices, because when they speak, it matters. When they act, it's deliberate. When they lead, it's with depth, not ego. So maybe the next time you're tempted to respond, pause instead. The next time you're anxious for progress, breathe instead. The next time you want to shout your worth, embody it instead. Because your power doesn't come from being the loudest in the room. It comes from being the most grounded. In a world that rewards speed, choose presence. In a culture that celebrates noise, choose clarity. In moments of chaos, choose calm. And when others are forcing their way forward, choose to prepare quietly. Patiently, because patience isn't about waiting. It's about what you're doing while you wait. And silence isn't about shutting out the world. It's about tuning into yourself. So stay steady, stay quiet. Stay committed. The world may not notice right away, but one day it will. And when it does, you won't need to say a word. True patience isn't sitting still. It's quiet, disciplined action. It's trusting the process, staying consistent behind the scenes, and understanding that meaningful growth takes time. You don't force results. You prepare for them. Silence is not the absence of power, it's the mastery of it. It allows you to listen deeply, act intentionally, and respond with clarity. The strongest voices don't speak the most. They speak the most meaningfully. Transformation often occurs in private, not on display. Like seeds beneath the soil or pearls in the deep ocean, real growth happens quietly. You don't need to be seen to be becoming something extraordinary. The world rewards noise in the short term, but the long term belongs to those who build with intention, grounded in patience and clarity. When you stop performing and start becoming, your presence speaks louder than words ever could. Patience is not what we were taught it is. It's not just sitting there, waiting for something to happen while time drips slowly past. It's not about passivity or being content with stagnation. Real patience is incredibly active. It's focused. It's strategic. It's about preparing quietly for a moment you believe will come, even if you can't see any evidence yet. That's the thing most people miss. Patience looks invisible to the outside world, but inside, it's a storm of decisions, discipline, and delayed gratification. There's a misconception that if something isn't happening fast, it's not happening at all. But slow doesn't mean still. Slow means sustainable. Slow means deliberate. Slow means you're building something that lasts. Think of an artist crafting a sculpture from stone. Every strike of the chisel is purposeful. Every pause, every adjustment matters. You could walk by 100 times and see the same block, still incomplete. But the artist sees progress where others see stagnation. That's patience in motion. That's mastery being carved from stillness. Sometimes we confuse urgency with importance. We get caught in the rush to prove ourselves, to post results, to stay visible. But the truth is, the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more people who know how to be still and listen, to their own inner wisdom, to the people they lead, to the timing of life. Not everything good happens fast. In fact, most things that are truly worthwhile take years. To become someone of character, you have to make choices every day that no one claps for. You have to keep showing up, refining, learning, adapting. You keep doing the work that no one notices, trusting that one day it will show. The reason so many people burn out or give up isn't because they didn't have the talent. It's because they didn't build the muscle of patience. They didn't learn how to handle the silence between efforts and results. That space between trying and seeing the reward, that's where most people get lost. But if you can sit in that space and keep going, that's where your greatness is formed. Patience is a kind of long-term self-trust. It's the belief that if you keep showing up with intention, something meaningful will eventually bloom. It's planting a seed and watering it every day without digging it up to check if it's growing. It's doing the work because you believe in the outcome, even when no one else does. And then there's silence, not the awkward kind, not the kind that makes you feel left out, but the kind that gives you power, the kind that makes people lean in, not pull away. Silence is a force most people don't know how to handle, so they fill it with words, distractions, noise. But if you're brave enough to sit with it, silence becomes a gift. In silence, you hear your own thoughts more clearly. You discover your truth, not the version you perform for others. You begin to untangle your voice from the expectations of the world. In a room full of shouting, the quiet voice is the one people strain to hear. That's the power of restraint, the power of holding back until you have something worth saying. There was a woman once who worked in a high-pressure environment. Meetings were dominated by the loudest people in the room. She didn't interrupt. She didn't fight to be heard. She listened. She observed. She took mental notes of patterns, emotions, blind spots. People mistook her quietness for weakness. Until one day, when a major crisis hit and everyone was spinning in panic, she spoke, just once, clearly, calmly. She offered a solution no one had thought of, and they listened. Because when you don't always speak, people notice when you do. When you're not constantly trying to prove yourself, your presence becomes proof. We live in a world that's so uncomfortable with stillness that we rush to fill every gap. But silence isn't empty. It's where all the good stuff lives. Creativity, insight, healing, emotional clarity. When you're always talking, you can't hear what's trying to surface inside you. But when you get quiet, you create space for transformation. There's a reason meditation has been practiced for centuries. Not because it makes you more productive, but because it helps you return to yourself, to detach from the false urgency of the world and reconnect with what matters. In silence, you realize how much of your stress comes from trying to control things that were never yours to control. And silence doesn't mean isolation. It's possible to be surrounded by people and still be rooted in stillness. It's not about escaping the world. It's about moving through it with presence, with intention. With inner clarity, that's where real leadership comes from. Not just knowing what to say, but knowing when to say nothing. Not just reacting, but reflecting. Not just being the loudest in the room, but the clearest. Imagine a person you truly respect, not for their fame, but for their substance. Chances are, they didn't become who they are by reacting to every provocation or seeking constant attention. They probably made a lot of quiet, unseen decisions. They probably waited when others rushed. They probably kept their heads down and their hearts steady, because growth is quiet. It's not always Instagram-able. It doesn't come with applause. You build it like a craftsman builds a violin, one quiet layer at a time. You refine your values, you train your mind, you take small, steady steps when no one is watching. And then one day, something happens. A moment comes that requires everything you've built in the background. And suddenly you're ready, not because you lucked out, but because you prepared, patiently, silently. When others crumble under pressure, you hold. When others overreact, you pause. When others look outside for answers, you look within. That's the foundation you've built, and no one can take that from you. It's easy to get caught in the comparison trap, measuring your progress against someone else's timeline. But comparison thrives in noise. Patience and silence cut through that noise. They remind you that your journey is yours, that it doesn't need to look like anyone else's to be meaningful. You start to realize that most of what people show isn't real depth, it's curated perception. The real stuff, the stuff that lasts, is built slowly, away from the spotlight, in moments no one sees. There's a kind of quiet pride that comes from knowing you've built yourself honestly, that you didn't take shortcuts, that you didn't sell out for quick applause, that you endured, adapted, stayed true. And yes, there will be moments when it feels like it's all taking too long, like no one sees your efforts, like nothing's working. But those are the moments that define you, not the easy wins, but the hard waits. Can you keep moving forward when the results aren't visible yet? Can you keep believing in yourself when the world is silent? Can you hold your ground in the stillness between what was and what will be? If you can, you're stronger than most, because the person who can be still in chaos, who can be patient in pressure, who can be silent in noise, is the person who leads themselves, and that's where all true leadership begins. Sometimes it's not about saying more, it's about saying less, but meaning it more. It's not about being seen more, it's about being seen for the right reasons. It's not about how fast you get there, it's about who you become on the way. There's a tree in California, the bristlecone pine, that is considered one of the oldest living organisms on Earth. Some of them are over 5,000 years old. They've survived storms, fires, droughts, and winters, but they didn't grow tall fast. They grew slowly, patiently. Their roots go deep. Their bark is thick. Their strength is silent. You'll never see one trending. But they're still standing, and maybe that's the lesson. You don't need to be everywhere to be impactful. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You don't need to be seen constantly to be remembered meaningfully. You just need to be consistent, grounded, true. Some of the most powerful shifts you'll ever make will happen in the silence of your own heart, in the patience of your own process, in the stillness of your own becoming. Not all growth looks like expansion. Sometimes it looks like quiet endurance, like holding steady when it would be easier to quit, like trusting that the roots are growing even when nothing blooms yet, like believing that your presence matters even if no one claps today, because the applause isn't the reward. The reward is becoming someone who no longer needs it. The reward is knowing you've become solid. reliable, calm under pressure, grounded in principle, unshaken by delay, rooted in truth, and it's all forged in the fires of patience, in the depth of silence. Let others chase the spotlight, let them scramble for validation. You stay rooted, you stay quiet, you stay the course. You're building something stronger than attention. You're building character, and that, more than anything, is what the world needs now.